right, so I'm going to be talking about democracy for the few. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead because my first part, I was just going to just do a little history, about myself and then about Parenti, and then we can get into it. So I just wanted you guys to understand, like, I am Lumpy Louise. I am a Marxist-Leninist. I didn't always call myself a Marxist-Leninist. I went through a lot of stuff to get there. And as of last year, I was like, yes, I feel like I'm a Marxist-Leninist. So, and we can discuss that at some point. So, when I'm talking about this, it's coming from a Marxist-Leninist perspective. And I just want you guys to all understand that. Hello, Braden. Hello, everyone else coming in. And there's a, this copy, this Democracy for the Few 9th edition, you can get a free PDF off of archive.org. So a lot of the things I use for when I try to do book club and stuff like that, I try to always use books that are available online for people and stuff like that for free. So archive.org has been a good source, and it has most of Parenti's books. So I don't know if you guys are all aware, he's written over 20 books. A few of them are like anthologies of his. It is lumpy. A few. I should write that up there, that I'm lumpy, but I'll do that the next time. So there are. He has had over 20 books, and basically, this is the 9th edition of the book put out in 2010, but this book first came out in 1974, and this is right after he was basically blacklisted. He was blacklisted from academia. He was a professor when he fully got blacklisted. He was I believe at University of Vermont. But that was after what happened in 1970. So Parenti in 1968, he starts writing this book. It comes out in 1969 called The Anti-Communist Impulse. He's a political science professor. He graduated, he got his doctorate through Yale. And he started kind of looking at the Vietnam War, and this is what really got to him, was he was looking at it going, this is wrong, so he wasn't really a Marxist at that time. He wasn't, so he started kind of heading into that. So then he was seeing more and more about the anti-communism that was playing a huge part into the Vietnam War. So he wrote that book. He's at the University of Illinois at the time. 1970, May 4th, 1970 is Kent State. So Kent State in Ohio, there's a Neil Young song, Ohio, or I think it's a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song. But so it was very relevant in my mind growing up from 1970, because it happened the year I was born. It was still fresh in people's minds. So I would have heard about it. I realized I mentioned it the other day, and someone was like, what was that? What's Kent State? So Kent State is when the National Guard. So in April of 1970, it was known that we were going into Cambodia by then. So we went went into Cambodia off of, the Vietnam War. And so the students who were protesting, of course, the Vietnam War were now protesting the extension into Cambodia and Laos and stuff like that. And the National Guard was called in, and 4 of the students were gunned down. So now, you go to Illinois, and Parenti's out there with the protesters, with his students protesting this. And he's basically, let's see, I can actually show you in his own words. Hold on.
really coming out.
There's all the blood down my face. Yeah.
Oh my, that's you?
That's me. Yeah. I had curly hair in those days.
What were they doing to you?
They had clubs like this. I'm not kidding. And they came down. One guy came down, and he was going to hit me right here. And I heard him later in the jail said, if I had gotten a good first clean lick on that guy, he'd be a dead man now. But he was coming down, but another guy hit me here. So that brought my head this way. So his blow just caught me on the corner of the head. And when I had 12 stitches. I had a hole here and one over my eye.
Wow.
It was only when I couldn't get a job, when the doors were slammed, Parenti, oh God. So that's when I decided, well, what I got to do, you got a lemon, you make lemonade, right? So I'll concentrate on my writing and speaking.
Okay, so Lemonade he made. He did over 20 books, and there's tons of lectures. I heard there's 250 articles out there. I've only found about 60 or 70 of them. But yeah, so he basically, a year after that happened, now he got the job at University of Vermont. He's teaching at University of Vermont. He gets sentenced a year later. Because the cops claim, you saw those pictures. The cops beat him, but they claim that he did the attacking. So he was blacklisted, and he decided, and we get a whole bunch of work from him and stuff like that. So I'm glad that he kept up this and didn't just give up, and he was pretty much consistent. I will say early on, I am pretty sure he was and he supported some Trotskys that were running for office and stuff like that. He ran under the Dem Sox. He ran in around this time, I think it was at 74, 76 for House of Representatives up in Vermont. And as I was talking to someone yesterday about it, and yes, he actually did better than Bernie in that election for the House of Representatives. All right. So I wanted to go a little bit on like my views, just so you understand where I'm coming from too, is that I recognize the economic system being capitalism in the United States with a few social band-aids slapped on to appease the buffering middle class. Those are your safety net programs that are always in jeopardy from the right. The economic system has now been inundated by neoliberalism. So our economic system being capitalism has been it's just neoliberalism now. And that first began in the 70s with Carter, and it's something that Parenti even brings up about Carter at some point, I think even in this book. I just wanted to read one thing about Carter's, I wanted to just read this one thing. This is when Carter turned 100, the former Texas Senator Phil Gramm wrote, without Mr. Carter's deregulation of the airlines, trucking, railroads, energy, and communications, America might not have had the ability to diversify its economy and lead the world in high-tech development when our post-war domination of manufacturing ended in the late 1970s. That was moving over to China. The Carter deregulation helped fuel the Reagan economic renaissance and continues to make possible the powerful innovations that remake our world. I wanted to read that because not only does it show, like, okay, so the neoliberalism was being brought in by the Democrats first. He was doing things that actually supported what Reagan ended up doing. So this is when we're saying that the Democrats, and the Republicans work together. This is stuff that we mean. It is stuff like this. Where was I? Okay, so neoliberalism, I want to talk about that. I first want to talk about corporatism, which if you, the upside down hanging man, Benito, says fascism should more properly be called corporatism because it is the merger of state and corporate power. So what he's talking about is the economic side of fascism. So yes, fascism has stemmed out of capitalism. It is like imperialism being part of the decay. So isn't fascism. And so the political system, there's a difference with the political and the economic. And this is what Parenti does start getting into a little bit in this first chapter, which is just kind of like the thesis chapter. This chapter could actually just be an introduction, to be honest. But it's just a quick chapter. And I figured it was an easier one for me to do by myself. So when you're talking about a political system under fascism, that's where you get the authoritarian and ultranationalism and, the racism and all the bad stuff you see in the, socially see. And then the economic system is the corporatism. So we can equate that with neoliberalism of today. Neoliberalism is just corporatism, and fascism was giving, the corporations are like running the government. So that is basically where I come from that. When I talk about social programs, I do not consider them socialism, as socialism is the workers owning the means of production. Some of these SOCDEM countries, maybe some industries are socialist, but in the United States, none of these social programs are actually socialism. They are social programs. And from Rosa Luxemburg on Reform and Revolution, she was talking about how Fournier's scheme of changing by means of philanstries, which I hate saying, that's just like having little communes and stuff like that. The water of all the seas into tasty lemonade was surely a fantastic idea, but Bernstein proposing to change the sea of capitalist bitterness into a sea of socialist sweetness by progressively pouring into it bottles of social reformist lemonade presents an idea that is merely more insipid, but no less fantastic. So basically what she's talking about is saving capitalism. Yeah, all you're doing by putting up these social reforms is saving capitalism. And hello, Hells. I see you. I don't know if I'm missing anyone else. Hello, everyone that's coming in. So Rosa goes on to say, only the hammer blow of revolution, that is to say, the conquest of political power by the proletariat, can break down the wall. So the wall between capitalism and socialism. So you can't have them running concurrently. You cannot. Capitalism is always just going to feed off the social programs and be band-aids and make capitalism more palatable for some people and not everybody, because there's always people that are exploited in these systems. All right. So with that said, let us Parenti is really good because he puts things. A lot of his books are in little parts. So I'm just we're going to listen. There's only 2 parts to this first chapter. We're going to listen to the first part. I'm going to discuss a little, and then we'll get into the second part. So hold on.
How does the U.S. political system work? What are the major forces shaping political life? Who governs in the United States? Who gets what, when, how, and why? Who pays and in what ways? These are the questions pursued in this book. Beyond textbooks, many of us were taught a somewhat idealized version of American government, which might be summarized as follows. 1. The United States was founded upon a constitution fashioned to limit political authority and check abuses of power. Over the generations it has proven to be a living document, which, through reinterpretation and amendment, has served us well. And a free press. Government decision makers are kept in check by their need to satisfy the electorate in order to remain in office. The people do not rule directly, but they select those who do. Thus, government decisions are grounded in majority rule, subject to the restraints imposed by the Constitution for the protection of minority rights. 3. The United States is a nation of manifold social and economic groups in which every significant group has a say and no one group chronically dominates. 4. These institutional arrangements have given us a government of laws and not of individuals, which, while far from perfect, allows for a fairly high degree of liberty and popular participation. This view of the United States as a happy, pluralistic polity assumes that existing political institutions operate with benign effect, that power is not highly concentrated nor heavily skewed toward those who control vast wealth, and that the state is a neutral entity with no special linkage to those who own the land, technology, and capital of this and other societies. These key assumptions will be challenged in the pages ahead. The theme of this book is that our government more often serves the privileged few rather than the general public, principally advancing the interests of the haves at the expense of the rest of us. The law is usually written and enforced in highly discriminatory ways. This democracy for the few is a product not only of the venality of particular office holders but a reflection of the entire politico-economic system, the way the resources of power are distributed and used. To be sure, the American people are not always passive victims to all this. The mass of ordinary people have made important political and economic gains, usually after long and bitter contests that have extended beyond the electoral process. This democratic struggle is an important part of the story that will be touched upon in the pages ahead. This book tries to demonstrate that just about every part of the politico-economic system, be it the media, lobbying, criminal justice, overseas intervention, or environmental policy, reflects the nature of the whole, and in its particular way serves to maintain the overall system, especially the system's basic class interests. In a word, seemingly distinct issues and social problems are often interrelated. The political system comprises the various branches of government along with the political parties, laws, lobbyists, and private interest groups that affect public policy. By public policy, I mean the decisions made by government. Policy decisions are seldom neutral. They usually benefit some interests more than others, entailing social costs that are seldom equally distributed. The shaping of a budget, the passage of a law, and the development of an administrative program are all policy decisions, all political decisions, and there is no way to execute them with neutral effect. If the wants of all persons could be automatically satisfied, there would be no need to set priorities and give some interests precedence over others. Indeed, there would be no need for politics. Politics extends beyond election campaigns and the actions of government. Decisions that confine certain matters, such as rental costs or healthcare, to the private market are highly political, even if seldom recognized as such. Power in the private realm is generally inequitable and undemocratic and often the source of conflicts that spill over into the public arena, for instance, management labor disputes, and racial and gender discrimination. Someone once defined a politician as a person who receives votes from the poor and money from the rich on the promise of protecting each from the other. And former President Jimmy Carter observed, "Politics is the world's second oldest profession, closely related to the first." While not denying the measure of truth in such observations, I take a broader view. Politics is more than just something politicians do. It is the process of conflict among private interests carried into the public arena. Politics involves not only the competition among groups within the system but the embattled efforts to change the system itself, not only the desire to achieve predefined ends but the struggle to redefine ends and pose alternatives to the existing politico-economic structure.
Okay, so, give me 1 second. Let me pull up my notes. All right, so that is the first section is titled, the chapter is Partisan Politics, and that section's entitled Beyond Textbooks. So he is just basically establishing the thesis for the book. Like I said, this is probably could just be an introduction to the book. But he's making the case that, he's looking at how we are taught about U.S. politics and what it actually is. And he entitles the first section Beyond Textbooks, and that is indicating, as he kind of says in this book, like it feeds into like every aspect of our lives. So he's indicating that our educational system is compromised by this. Like our educational system helps the capitalists because of the way that we get textbooks and stuff. It's usually the state. It's not really the federal doesn't do stuff on the textbooks, but it is a lot to do with states and local governments and stuff like that. So the politics does play a part in what textbooks you are going to be learning from. So in this, let me scroll up. We can look at the four things that he says that you learn. So in the first one, he's saying like the Constitution is this living document and it's great, it's awesome, and it always covers us and it's served us well. Well, I mean, just off the get-go, so the Constitution comes out in 1787. By 1789, it's still not being ratified by all the states. So a Bill of Rights has to come out. So the Constitution was not all-encompassing, was not this great thing. They had to work out these Bill of Rights, the first 10 anyhow, before it got ratified. And then they have to keep adding on to that. But also, in 1816, which would be 19 years after Jefferson authored this, the Constitution, Thomas Jefferson was like in a correspondence with with Madison and this guy Samuel Kercheval, who was a Virginia lawyer, and he was saying that the Constitution should be rewritten every 19 to 20 years, every generation, because it doesn't, like, every generation changes. So he's actually seeing the world in the change, like that, what Marx talks about, like everything changes and you have to keep analyzing and keep, looking at it. So Jefferson himself is saying that this Constitution should not still be, next year, 250 years from 1776 next year. So that's going to be fun. The patriotism going on, but whatever. No, it is not, it has not served everyone well. It was written by white landowning people, and it didn't include everyone. I mean, right off the get-go, it didn't include women, which is half the population. And it was written while, we were still doing slavery. And it was actually written because the Brits were actually thinking of getting rid of slavery, and the white landowners here did not want that to happen. So yeah, it didn't really serve very well. Are they serious about the $250 Trump bill? I don't know what the $250 Trump bill is. This is Democracy for the Few by Michael Parenti, Jen. It's I don't know if you can see, it's written up on the chalkboard. So, all right. So the second thing that he was talking about is the representation. Like, it's great. They added in the House of Representatives. Much to the forefathers not wanting them, they added in supposedly representation of the people, which never represented the people. These people were never representing everyone. They were representing, very few people. And still to this day, you can say, you get a progressive in there, they're not representing you. We know, like, Mike Gravel, who was a senator at one time and ran for president again a couple of times again, even said about the bubble, like, you can't, like, with the lobbying, the money and everything, once you get into DC, it's a bubble. And even if you think that all these things are good, you're going to start agreeing with the people in the bubble, because those are the people that you talk to every day. That is what you're hearing. You're not actually talking to the people and representing them. The third point was that the United States nation is manifold social and economic groups in which every significant group has a say. That's totally not true, especially when when this came out. As we said, the Constitution was made and there was already oppression for a bunch of groups. And the fourth one is that the laws that are made are fair, and it's not perfect, but it doesn't. But as we know, I wrote down this when I wrote down for a note. Your skin color doesn't indicate whether or not you are more likely to be a criminal. It does tell us, especially in the United States, whether or not you'll be more likely to be arrested, whether or not you did criminal stuff. So, is it cut off? Yeah, I don't know what it's looking like. You know what? I should look on my phone and see what's happening with it, because I'll have to fix it for the next time. Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. It's cut off on the side there. I'll fix it for the next time. So it's democracy for the few. Is his it's basically kind of like he wrote it kind of like a textbook on purpose, probably knowing it was never going to be used as a textbook. So anyhow, what are we doing? So then he gets back down into he's addressing the main theme of the book again, and he is saying like our government more often serves the privileged few rather than the general public, principally advancing the interest of the haves at the expense of the rest of us. So that was a quote from him. So when he talks about America's not just being a passive victims, we get a lot into this is, oh, FDR gave us the New Deal. No, FDR did not give us the New Deal. The people fought for that. Labor rights. People fought and died in the labor wars of this country. It was always the people that got these concessions. Granted, mainly Band-Aids, didn't fix it. Capitalism, as we said, just takes those social reforms and makes it look prettier, but, to certain people, and, it's always going to go by the wayside and be just horrible again. So he's talking about not being passive victims. And here, and I think in the second section, if I'm recalling right from earlier going through this, he's trying to convince people everything's political. You need to get involved is basically what he's trying to convince people of here. And not just with voting. That's not, that is not what he's saying. All right. So when he talks about the process of conflict right at the end, I'll scroll down to that. When he's talking about this, the process of conflict, it kind of harkens, that is, he's tapping a little bit into Marxism there. He's kind of, saying contradictions, the process of conflict would be the contradiction stuff that we talk about. So there are those who are actively trying to keep the capitalist system because it benefits their class, and those actively fighting against it because it hurts so many. All right. So I'm going to, oh, thank you, Holy Water. Oh, thank you, Pickle Jen. So I'm trying to, and I want you guys to please give me any feedback, because I'm trying to do this so that we set up, as long as we have TikTok after April 5th, which I think we are going to have. I want to continue doing these, but I actually want to do them for Collective Book Club at some point. So probably by the summer, if this is working out, then. All right. So let's listen to section 2.
Partisan Politics 3. The Politico-Economic System. Politics today covers every kind of issue, from abortion to school prayers, but the bulk of public policy is concerned with economic matters, which is why some writers refer to their politico-economic system. Among the more vital functions of government are taxing and spending. Certainly they are necessary for everything else government does, from delivering the mail to making war. The very organization of the federal government reflects its close involvement with the economy. Thus, one finds the Departments of Commerce, Labor, Agriculture, Interior, Transportation, and Treasury, and the Federal Trade Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, the Interstate Commerce Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and numerous other agencies directly involved in the economy. Likewise, most of the committees in Congress can be identified according to their economic functions, the most important having to do with taxation and appropriations. Politics and economics are two sides of the same coin. Economics is concerned with the production and distribution of scarce resources, involving conflicts between social classes and among groups and individuals within classes. Much of politics is a carryover of that struggle. Both politics and economics deal with the survival and material well-being of millions of people. Both deal with the fundamental conditions of social life itself. This close relationship between politics and economics is neither neutral nor merely coincidental. Governments evolve through history in order to protect accumulations of property and wealth. In nomadic and hunting societies, where there is little surplus wealth, governance is rudimentary and usually communal. In societies where wealth and property are controlled by a select class of persons, a state develops to protect the interests of the haves from the have-nots. As John Locke wrote in 1689, the great and chief end of men's uniting into commonwealths and putting themselves under government is the preservation of their property. And Adam Smith, the premier exponent of early capitalism, stated in 1776, the necessity of civil government grows up with the acquisition of valuable property. And till there be property there can be no government, the very end of which is to secure wealth, and to defend the rich from the poor. 1. Many political scientists manage to ignore the relationship between government and wealth, treating the corporate giants, if at all, as if they were but one of a number of interest groups. They label as Marxist any approach that sees government as largely an instrument to protect the interests of wealth. To be sure, Karl Marx saw the state to be just such an instrument, but so did conservative theorists like Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Adam Smith, and, in America, Alexander Hamilton and James Madison. They also, Marx included, saw government as the institution that carried out more general functions such as building bridges, protecting the populace from crime, setting standard weights and measures for trade, and the like. But most important of all, just about every theorist and practitioner of politics in the 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries thought of the state as the protector of propertied wealth. The people who own the country ought to govern it, declared John Jay. A permanent check over the populace should be exercised by the rich and the well-born, urged Alexander Hamilton. Unlike most theorists before him, Marx was one of the first in the modern era to see the existing relationship between wealth and power as undesirable and exploitative, and this was his unforgivable sin. The tendency to avoid critical analysis of corporate capitalism persists to this day among business people, journalists, and most academics. Power is no less political because it is economic. By power, I mean the ability to get what one wants, either by having one's interests prevail in conflicts with others or by preventing others from raising their demands. Power presumes the ability to manipulate the social environment to one's advantage. Power belongs to those who possess the resources that enable them to shape and influence the actions and beliefs of others, such resources as jobs, organization, technology, publicity, media, social legitimacy, expertise, essential goods and services, organized force, and the ingredient that often determines the availability of these things, money. Sometimes the complaint is made, you're good at criticizing the system, but what would you put in its place? The implication being that unless you have a finished blueprint for a better society, you should refrain from pointing out existing deficiencies and injustices. This book is predicated on the notion that it is desirable and necessary for democratic citizens to examine the society in which they live, possibly as a step toward making fundamental improvements. It is unreasonable to demand that we refrain from making a diagnosis of an illness until we have perfected a cure. For how can we hope to find solutions unless we really understand the problem? In any case, improvements and solutions are offered in the closing chapter and elsewhere in this book. Political life is replete with deceit, corruption, and plunder. Small wonder that many people seek to remove themselves from it. But whether we like it or not, politics and government play a crucial role in determining the conditions of our lives. People can leave political life alone, but it will not leave them alone. They can escape its noise and nonsense but not its effects. One ignores the doings of the state only at one's own risk. If the picture that emerges in the pages ahead is not pretty, this should not be taken as an attack on the United States, for this country and its people are greater than the abuses perpetrated upon them by those who live for power and profit. To expose these abuses is not to denigrate the nation that is a victim of them. The greatness of a country is to be measured by something more than its rulers, its military budget, its instruments of dominance and destruction, and its profiteering giant corporations. A nation's greatness can be measured by the democratic nature of its institutions, by its ability to create a society free of poverty, racism, sexism, exploitation, imperialism, and environmental devastation. There is no better way to love one's country, and strive for the fulfillment of its greatness, than to entertain critical ideas that enable us to pursue social justice at home and abroad.
Okay, so I want to actually discuss that last paragraph first because it basically so it's being used Parenti in his that number 3, that little footnote there is pointing you to read Superpatriotism. Okay, so Superpatriotism is about, you know, being all militaristic and like just loving the crap that the government does. Like that is what he describes superpatriotism. But you have groups that are, claim that they're communist and, like MAGA communists and stuff like that, who will point to Parenti saying stuff like, okay, you can be, you can love your country, as to the fact that they want to push the nationalism. But as you see in this paragraph here, he is talking about, no exploitation. He is talking against the things that the government does. So he's not saying support the government. He is talking about the sense of supporting community. And that was, you have Eugene Debs, you'll see him with a flag. Even the Black Panthers would have a flag here and there, that was kind of a sense, being born in 1970, I saw a lot of that. Don't care about the government, it's 200 years old now, don't care about that, but care about the people, and, to rebuild communities. So I think, to me, what he's getting at is the fact that we went so individualistic and that he wants community rebuilt. So that I just wanted to put that out there because, he is not telling you to be a patriot for the United States government. That is not what he's saying, no matter what anyone tells you. Okay, so in section 2, it's called Politico-Economic System. Parenti brings up John Locke, who is the father of liberalism, which is our socio-political system, and Adam Smith, who is the father of capitalism, which is our economic system. So both of these people, in what they're saying, you have John Locke saying the great and chief end of men's uniting into commonwealths and putting themselves under government and the preservation of their property. And you have Adam Smith saying the necessity of civil government grows up with the acquisition of valuable property. And then till there be property, there can be no government, the very end of which is to secure wealth and to defend the rich from the poor. Okay. So those are the two fathers of our system. So, and yes, Democrats and Republicans are, politically liberal entities, right? So, because they follow liberalism. So when we talk about, we are Trump is a liberal and that pisses them off. It's true. He is falling under the political system of liberalism. So there you go for that. All right. So Parenti says politics and government play a crucial role in determining the conditions of our lives, emphasizing that ignoring political realities is risky and dropping out is not the answer. So, and you got to also understand when he's writing this book in 1974, there was a lot of sentiment in the 60s to, you had a lot of sentiment towards the revolutionary, but you also had a lot of sentiment of let's just drop out and not pay attention. So then John Jay, who's brought up, he's one of the founding fathers. He was the son of a wealthy merchant. He states the people who own the government should run it. I wanted to highlight that because of the word own, because that just says so much right there. The people who own the government, because it is the corporations that do own our government. And Parenti gets into how Marx's sin was, how he was pointing out the power dynamic of the rich owning and ruling everything, and that was undesirable and exploitative. So in Parenti pointing this out, he's saying how anyone that is given, so he's saying that anyone giving a modicum of power, business people, journalists, and most academics do not like to make waves because you can see, okay, Marx said this. Marx was crucified for saying these things. You can just look back in our history of anyone that tries to say stuff like Parenti, who got blacklisted from academia. So he did probably by the mid-'80s. He started doing some TV shows. He was writing books. He would go on some of the political talk shows. But he was invited back into being a lecturer at these colleges. So, it kind of faded a little bit, but, he still could not have been a professor anyway. No one was going to hire him. So, thank you, Richard, for, I hope you like these lives. This is the first time I'm doing this, so just let me know if I need to change anything. Also, I can bring people up after. I just want to finish these last few notes, and then if people want to come up and discuss, I can pull you up. So you can start requesting if you want to come up. Parenti gets into how Marx is, I already said that. All right. So Parenti defines power as, I'm just going to read that paragraph. Power is no less political because it is economic. By power, I mean the ability to get what one wants, either by having one's interests prevail in conflicts with others or by preventing others from raising their demands. Power presumes the ability to manipulate the social environment to one's advantage. Power belongs to those who possess the resources that enable them to shape and influence the actions. So power under capitalism belongs to the corporations. Power under communism would go to the workers, right? So, such resources as jobs, organization, technology, publicity, media, social legitimacy, expertise, essential goods and services, organized force, and the ingredient that often determines the availability of these things is money. So, yes, so money talks. Money, money, money. All right. So the criticism, like what he was always seeing, we get the same criticisms in lives all the time, but one of the ones that we get is, well, what is the plan? You know, like what you have to have this full drawn out plan. And as a communist, we know, okay, first of all, as even Thomas Jefferson was kind of saying, things move. Nothing, you know, we're on a moving train, you know, and nothing stays the same. So we can't really come up with this is what we're going to do, because it might, you know, it might only work for today, but also, you start talking about how you want to change things, you're going to be, you know, quieted pretty quickly, I guess. So, what did I have for notes here? On lives, I hear all the time people making this claim and also pointing out that bad things that they were propagandized of on communism, usually in an overblown fashion. That happened under the state working towards communism, as we know, but I feel like it is a good time to bring up communism doesn't happen overnight. It is a process which cannot truly be achieved until the hegemony moves from capitalist economy towards a communist, socialist, communist one. So we can't come out with our plans. We just can't. So that should be understood. But you know, they're going to keep asking for them. Communists understand that things are moving. We cannot, all right, I just discussed that. Okay. The last point, and I already made that point. So, okay. So Parenti and I are from, all right, that was just talking on that. So I guess those are my things. So if anyone did want to come up and discuss anything to do with this, I will let you in. Ash is going to come up soon. It takes like, I don't know, I'm in my PC and it takes like a minute to open any of these things. So I'm going to invite Ash. Who else wants to come up? Come on up and talk. I'm going to invite Rick. So, yeah. So anyhow, so what I want to do, this, like I said, this was just a really quick chapter, which is pretty much just the introduction of the book. I'll set up, I just got to go and just organize like, you know, a good time to do this, whether I'm going to just do one chapter at a time. You know, just all that stuff. Hello, Brittany. This, the book itself is about 300 pages. This is a textbook. He added in, so he had like, this is the 9th edition. This came out in 2010. I think that's the last one put out in English. Though for some reason I saw 2011 somewhere and I couldn't find another thing. So, hold on. I'm going to let Ash up, but it's going to take a second to, I don't know why it takes so long when you push these buttons on this thing. So he is added to it. So it's not, just the stuff from 1974. I didn't mention, like, Ash, I don't know why this is, like, being weird. Come on. Accept. Okay, Ash is coming up. This is going to move all my stuff. I'll have to figure that all out. But, so he added to this over the years. And so the 9th edition actually includes, like, some, that Parenti had, like, this big beef with, George Jr. with Shrub. So, like I was saying, so he really had an issue with as I call him Shrub. It's George Jr. So he did add in some of that stuff into the later. He talks about Clinton. He talks about all that. When I was all right. Rick's coming in. Ash is coming in.
Hello.
Ethan. Like, that's the beginning of every single Parenti lecture. He's like, "Oh, this fucking microphone."
I know.
It's fucking great.
I actually, because I've been doing all the clips. I actually been saving all his complaints about microphones. I'm going to put out like one big video of him complaining about microphones.
Have you seen the color corrected yellow Parenti? Like, somebody color corrected it, and they were like, "You thought if you could, but you think that you should."
I know, I know. I put a blue on top of him, and people were side eyeing me because it was one of his. Because it was one of his other lectures, and he was because I've been blowing his image up so he's big, that he's very pixelated. So I was like, "Oh, this blue thing over him makes it look better," and everyone's like, "That's blue Parenti. That's not yellow Parenti. You can't have blue Parenti."
Wait, why is it always yellow?
So
it's just that one lecture.
There's
it's really long.
The famous lecture. It's the 1986 lecture that everyone watches. It's like his most famous lecture, and for some reason, with the way they filmed it, either the film just got old. It was probably filmed on a videotape, is what I'm thinking.
It's those old VHS cameras you had to do your own color correcting.
Yeah.
And they just like fucked it up. Like, you had to like adjust the RGB in the thing, and they've just like fucked it up really bad when they recorded it, and it just got released like that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And the weird thing is I'm having trouble posting things from Yellow Parenti on this account. It keeps giving me copyright. I've tried 2 different ones, and it gave me copyright. And it's a copyright to a song. It's not copyright to the lecture itself, because Parenti did not copyright any of his lectures. So I don't know. But yeah, so I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I...
You're cooking. I love it.
It works, yeah. So I like Rick, I would love to have you come up and do a couple of these with me and stuff like that too. Anyone that knows Parenti well. But yeah, I mean, this is just, the introduction to his, so him being a political scientist, he's writing a textbook that's the true United States government and not what we were taught in school. So, but yeah, I don't know.
The stuff about Parenti and Bernie Sanders has been going around a little bit lately with the whole Hassan Bernie Sanders AOC debacle. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty funny, like, because he used to be friends with Bernie, but then like dished him over bombing Yemen. I think it was like the deal. He was just like, "Look, like, no, like, you're not gonna suddenly like support, like, try to be anti-capitalist and support this war." And that's like one of the things I think, like, you're talking about the bubble that exists. Like, that's that you can see Bernie Sanders move to the right over his political career.
Yeah.
He does it consistently. And you're seeing it with AOC, and she started way further to the right than Bernie Sanders did.
Oh, definitely. And Parenti actually split with Bernie in the 90s over Yugoslavia is where he really... So I had posted, when he was talking in 2015, he did a lecture, and then they did a talk after that, and that's when he was talking about the split on Bernie. So I have actually that video up with him talking about it, like why. But like the Yugoslavia stuff was so what happened in the 90s.
Bernie supported the NATO incursion into Yugoslavia, really?
Yep.
Damn, what an asshole.
And I didn't even realize that until I didn't see Parenti talking in 2015 on this. So I didn't even see it until after I was supporting Bernie and stuff. And then I was like, oh, why did he do that? So, I mean, I had my issues with Bernie, but like my support of Bernie, I came from it like kind of knowing, he isn't a real socialist, communist, stuff like that. But I was hoping we'd get healthcare. Like that was my big hope.
I thought anarchist for Bernie Sanders was ironic, and then turned out it wasn't ironic for a lot of people. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like,
they got stuck. They got stuck there, I guess. I don't know.
It's that's a lot of there's this I guess you could call it tendencies, like a liberal tendency like that, right? Where they're just they have the anarchist for Bernie Sanders cohort of people who are I don't know. I was there not that long ago, so I shouldn't be that critical. But this idea that and it's going to be popping up a lot more. They're going to be well, no, because we're going to have to side with the liberals, and it's okay, but what are the liberals doing to fight fascism? When they're fighting fascism, you can side with them, but when they're not, which is 99% of the time, what are you going to do then? That's
it's not. I mean, we see what the liberals are doing. The liberals are oh, well, now in 17 months, we'll have an election. And then months after that, when we win those elections and, there's a blue wave again, we could actually put in policies. So if you guys just hold on for 2 years, we'll try to put in policies that Trump's not going to accept anyway. So that's how we're battling, fascism.
I love that. That's so effective. It's always election season now for 10 years.
Hey, Angry.
Hello.
Yeah, and it's always and that's all it is. It's a cycle, and it was constantly when I got into Twitter, that's when I was seeing in 2015, 2016, okay, you were going, and of course you were seeing it, that was but just after that election, they were starting for 2018. November 2016, they started talking about, I have to do a little test here, sorry. Pull the puzzle piece. Move the puzzle piece.
Is it accusing you of being a robot?
Probably. All right, I moved the puzzle piece, all right. Sometimes I get the puzzle piece right, and they nope, you didn't do it. When you have to pick the two objects, does that happen to you guys? I'm that was the number 2 and a number 2, and I selected both of them, and you're telling me they're not the same thing. I don't get this. TikTok. But anyhow, all right. So I don't know what I was saying. What's up, Angry?
I just woke up, so there's that.
Nice.
I like part of it that you were talking about. I mean, I liked all of it, but there was a part I really liked, Leppy, where he was talking about political versus economic concessions, which I think is always a good conversation.
Yeah, I think that conversation has to be had a little bit more. I'm not gonna, there's times where I get it all confused. You know what I mean? Am I talking political? Am I talking economic? What side of this am I talking on? And I think it's very important that we keep pushing what liberalism is that it is our political, our socio-political side of our government,
Yeah, I like what he was saying about power. Like, is like if you have like there's centers of power where you have influence over people through various different means, and that's like what power is. And we can recognize that like corporations have as much or more power than the government in most cases, right? So, like, why are we pretending that we are living under a democracy when there's like a handful of investors that get to decide who gets to decide?
Yeah, and it's just it still amazes me because I'm like, all right, yeah, I was just a child and like I was told these things, and so I realized why I believed them at that time. But as I grew up, I was like, this isn't right. I mean, even by the time I was a teenager, I mean, so that's what I was saying. This was the first book, not this edition, of course, because it was 1989. So I think when I look back, I think it's the second edition I actually read because it wasn't a little bit older at that time. Someone had handed me it in college. And so this was like kind of the first like theory. I don't know if you call this theory. It's a textbook on the U.S. Code, but it was like the first thing that I read. And it took me a little bit to figure out what I read because I didn't know who Parenti was. You know, I didn't like retain that. And then I went into the workforce and was working. And then years later, I come and I realized, oh, wait, I've read Parenti. You know what I mean? Like a couple of decades later. And I'm like, I couldn't figure out exactly what it was until I last year went through and read everything I could get my hands on of Parenti's. And then I was like, oh, this was the book.